Welcome back to the show. Today I want to share some thoughts with you on the theme of time is ticking away. Time is ticking away. I can remember when I was a kid that I could not wait for Christmas to arrive. It seemed like it took 3 years for Christmas to arrive. I couldn't wait for Easter to arrive because we'd get candy every year. And it seemed like forever for Easter to arrive. And then the older I got, it seemed that Christmas and Easter and other holidays, they took a very short amount of time to arrive. I can remember when we got out of school at the end of the school year in June. And when I was a kid, it seemed like, man, it was like 6 months of summer vacation because school was out for a few months. But in reality, it was only a very short time. And then the older I got, it got into high school area, it seemed like the time got real short. And the vacation from school was like, it seemed like 2 weeks instead of a couple of months. So that's kind of like the theme I want to share in this show. The older I get, it seems like time is flying so fast. There's a story I read one time. I want to share it with you right now. It said, if you had a bank account that credited your account each morning with $86,000, that carried over no balance from day to day, allowed you to keep no cash in your account, and every evening canceled whatever part of the amount you failed to use during the day, what would you do? Well, most people would draw out every single cent and use it to your advantage. Well, the story says, you have such a bank account, and the name of that bank account is called time. Every morning it credits you with 86,400 seconds. Every night it rules off as lost whatever of this you failed to invest for a good purpose. It carries over no balances. It allows no overdrafts, and each day it opens a new account for you. If you fail to use the day's deposits, the loss is yours. There's no going back, and there's no drawing against tomorrow. If you're not going to get anything out of this episode on this show today, it's that time is ticking by so fast. There are times in my life right now that I wish I could go back in time and relive some of the events that my family's gone through because I can't get those back. We have 6 kids, and most of the kids are getting older, and it's just, I wish I could go back and relive some of those events. There's a story about Charles Watson that I want to share. Industrialist, actually the author of this story was Charles Watson, and he's talking about Charles Schwab. He was a key figure in Andrew Carnegie's steel empire, and frustrated with his inability to get everything done, he once reluctantly agreed to meet with a consultant named Ivy Lee, who was recommended to him by John D. Rockefeller. And if you know anything about history in the United States, Rockefeller at that time, in nowadays dollars, was a billionaire, okay? So he recommended that he talk to this guy. So Schwab had little use for consultants, but since Rockefeller recommended Lee so highly, he went ahead and scheduled this meeting. Lee's proposal was elegantly simple. So he did this. He says he told Schwab to make a list of the 6 most important things he could do the next day to further the overall health and function of his company called U.S. Steel. Again, he told him to write down the 6 most important things he could do the next day to further what his company was doing. At the end of the day, Schwab was to review the list and move anything that had not been finished to the top of the next day's list. And then he would add enough items to make the total 6 again. Within 15 minutes, the meeting concluded. Lee told Schwab to follow this practice for 30 days and send him a payment based on how much Schwab thought the advice was worth. And at the end of the month, Schwab sent Lee a check for $25,000, which was worth a whole lot more today in nowadays dollars. The point is, there are some techniques that you and I can use today that will help us get more accomplished. For me and for a lot of other people that are much smarter than me, they make a list of everything that they want to do the following day, the night before. Whether it's on your phone, whether it's on a piece of paper, you have what's called a to-do list. And if you have a to-do list to get things done for the following day, It's psychologically important because it pulls you to do this list, because psychologically you want to check off the items on that list. I would say that 95% of the people that I've met and or know of and or read about don't do this thing. Don't do this check the box, don't do the to-do list, and then they go through life months and years and decades later, and they look back with a ton of regret because they haven't gotten a whole lot done in their life. That's most people. I'm hoping you're not most people. So if you follow some of the tools that I want to share with you in this episode, you're going to find that you're going to be able to get a lot more done in a much shorter period of time. Now, there are certain things that I've learned. In fact, there's a lot of things that I've learned over the years that I wish I would have learned and or mastered when I was younger. Let me go over a few of them with you. At least in my own story, I wouldn't let fear stop me from daring to take huge risks in my life. In fact, I've turned down, when I was younger, a lot of opportunities because I was afraid. Now think about that a second. How many times haven't you turned down opportunities or job proposals or maybe some dreams in your life that you've had over the years that you have turned down because you were afraid? You thought that you were going to fail. You thought that you were going to fall flat on your face because you thought that you had plenty of time to get stuff done. You had plenty of time. Your life was going to be long and healthy, and you could have waited until you evolved to get certain things done. There's an author that I know of, and he said one time in one of his talks that he felt like at the time he was going to write a book, another book, and he felt that like he was too young to write a book. He felt like that he didn't have enough experience at that time. So 10 years go by and he still hadn't written that book. So another several years went by and he realized that if he keeps putting off writing this book, he's never going to be old enough. He's never going to be smart enough. So he may as well write the book. So that's exactly what he did. He wrote the book. Do what you don't like to do first and get it out of the way instead of really postponing it and then dreading the moment when you have to deal with it. I'm really a good one for that. Let me put it that way. There are times in my day, there's times in my week that I know that I should get the stuff done first that I really don't want to do, instead of postponing it to a point where I have to wait until all my other fun stuff is done and then I do the stuff that I don't want to do. Does that make any sense? So in other words, do the hard stuff first. Do the stuff that you don't really want to do first and get it out of the way. And then the rest of your day and the rest of your week is so much easier. These are times when I've wasted time because I've delayed doing things that I need to do but I don't really want to do. That's why, very candidly, I go to the gym first thing in the morning. Before work starts, I go to the gym. You know why? Because I know me. I know that if I wait until 9, 10, 11, 12 o'clock, or goodness sakes, in the evening to get the energy and the drive to get to the gym after work hours, it's not going to happen. So I know that even though I don't want to work out, I don't want to go to the gym until I get to the door and then I'm happy I'm there, that I need to get done what I really don't feel like doing first so that the rest of the day goes much, much better. There's an old saying that I can't remember who said it, but the saying is, what's written gets done. It goes back to what I said moments ago about having a list of things that you need to get done consistently. So if you decide to write down the tasks that you want to get done during the course of the day, that list literally drives you forward to do certain things, because most people, they just take things as they come. I had a conversation with an attorney recently from this show, and he was telling me that he has recommended to his staff that his staff only check their emails twice a day, because as an email comes in, as you know, that email disrupts them from doing things that they need to do. And I'm guilty for that too. I tend to try to respond to the emails right away because I don't like people waiting for a response. However, when you respond to emails right away, it takes you off task. It stops your momentum. It slows you down from doing some of the things that you are in the process of doing. There's another category, there's another theme, there's another idea that messes with your time. And that is, you need to stay away from people who lie who cheat and are unethical. Let me say it again. Stay away from people who lie, who cheat, and are unethical. They'll drag you down quickly. Now, you might say, John, I have family members that are like that. I have coworkers are like that. I have neighbors that are like that. Well, hear me out in this idea. When you choose to hang around people who lie, who cheat, who are unethical, they literally slow you down from achieving some of the things that you want to achieve. You know why? Because they upset you. They get on that last nerve. They dance on that last nerve and drive you nuts. Way back in the late 80s, my wife and I bought our first house. And the house we lived next to was owned by some seniors, very nice family. It was a husband and a wife. And they eventually sold that house and downsized, and a new family moved in. Well, it's a long, long story. I'll cut it really short. But the male owner, the husband, decided to renovate his house in the middle of the night. So he would literally take a sledgehammer to the wall, which it was a row home, it was a townhouse. So he would take a sledgehammer to our side of the wall to take the plaster down on that side. And we're talking a sledgehammer. We're not talking scraping. We're talking literally, no exaggeration here, a sledgehammer. So of course it kept us awake. We were both working in other areas at the time, so we needed some sleep to get to work. And this guy was taking the sledgehammer. So that's kind of an illustration of how people can really disrupt your flow, can disrupt your rest, disrupt your time, because then you're focusing on their stupidity instead of focusing on things that you need to accomplish in your own life. There's another thing about time. Time has a way of magnifying the regrets and mistakes of the past. Let me say it again. Time has a way of magnifying the regrets and the mistakes of the past. D.D. Barrett wrote, "I've got a bad case of the 3 a.m. guilts. When you lie in bed awake and replay all those things you didn't do right, because as we all know, nothing solves insomnia like a nice warm glass of regret, depression, and self-loathing." Think about that a minute. The more you and I, because I do it too, the more you and I focus on what happened in our past, things that we can't go back to, things that we can't change, the complete idiotic choices we've made that has kept us from moving forward, we can't go back and change them. I wish we could go back and turn the clock back. I can tell you flat out in my own personal life, I wish I could take the clock and roll it back, but I can't, and you can't either. So if you want to maximize time, another idea is to not allow the regrets. I'm guilty of it, just like I'm sure you are too, that you and I allow the regrets to disrupt us, to distract us from moving in a position and in a direction in a way that can be life-changing for us. Mark Chernoff shares this story. He says, "I recently met a super wealthy and influential businessman at a corporate conference. The man had a net worth of over $100 million. In conversation, he told me he regretted never making it to his son's hockey games or his daughter's dance recitals. It made me smile because my total net worth is probably only as much as this man's last paycheck. But you've made it to everything. And my 2 children always smile and wave to me in the stands during practice on game days. In the final decade of his life, my grandfather woke up every single day at 7 a.m., picked a fresh wildflower on his morning walk, and took it to my grandmother. One morning, I decided to go with him to see her. As he placed a flower on her gravestone, he looked at me and said, quote, 'I just wish I had picked her a fresh flower every morning while she was alive. She would have really loved that.' Today, after spending the last 3 years constantly hassling and bickering with the 20-something who lives and parties next door, I found myself crying in his arms and thanked him repeatedly for saving my son's life. This morning, at a train stop near the hospital, A man and his 3 young kids got on. The kids were loud and completely out of control, running from one end of the train car to the other. An annoyed passenger sitting next to me looked over to the man and asked, "Is there a reason you're letting your kids go nuts right now?" The man looked with tears in his eyes and said, the doc just told me that their mother isn't going to make it much longer. Sorry, I'm just trying to think before we all sit down at home and talk about this. And of course, the annoyed passenger was speechless. So stories like this kind of give you the aha that, you know what, there are certain things that you and I need to get upset about. There's certain things that you and I need to value, while there's other things that really we don't need to pay much attention to. I'm still trying to learn that in my older age, that there are people in our world, people in our community, people in your life and my life that very candidly don't deserve our time because they don't know that they don't know. Another story. The biggest nerd in my 2004 high school graduation class, a nice, quiet boy who I wasn't very nice to, is now the heart surgeon who saved my mom's life after she suffered a sudden heart attack at 68 last night. It pays to be kind to the nerds, in quotes. You know why? Because I think, this is a total opinion, total commentary, the nerds rule the world. You know, the people who are all loud and boisterous think that they rule the world? Not so much. The nerds, the real smart, quiet, shy ones, they rule the world. So maybe we should be nice to those people every day. Another story. This morning, one of my regular people who was a really grumpy old elderly man had been eating at our diner every morning for the better part of the last 5 years. He left me a $1,000 cash tip for his $7 breakfast. Along the cash, he left a small note that read, "Thank you." You just don't know, man. You don't know when you're nice to other people how that comes back to you. It doesn't necessarily have to come back in a $1,000 tip. I'm not suggesting that that would ever happen to you or me, but I will suggest to you that every day that you make an impact in somebody else's life, it can dramatically change their life in ways that you may not ever know. Another story. Christine, I know I haven't been the brightest smile in your life, and I know we've even exchanged rude remarks a few times over the years, but your smile and general hospitality have sincerely given me something to look forward to every morning since my wife passed away. That's the backstory of the guy who left the $1,000 tip. Because of the server's kindness, because of the server's compassion. What if you and I treated everybody in our life like a very conscious server at a restaurant that really cared about their job, that was really good? There was way back in, I want to say, 1985. I'm guesstimating somewhere around there, 84, 85. I was still at home at the time with my parents, and we had the opportunity to travel to Arizona. And we were able to go to the Grand Canyon. And we were eating a meal, and our server's name was Keith. And Keith was, I would guesstimate at the time, maybe in his mid-20s by just how he looked. And then and now, I like a lot of butter on my rolls. So I would ask Keith politely, because that's how I was raised, "Keith, could I have some more butter?" And his response was this: "It can be done. It can be done." So he would go and get some more butter very quickly, and instantly we'd have butter right back on our table. When other people in the household that would ask for more to drink, his response was, "It can be done." The example or the point of this kind of story in this piece was if we treated everybody around us with kindness and compassion. I'm not suggesting, however, that you need to hang around those liars and those cheaters and those people who are adamant about dragging other people down. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying, but the majority of people around you will appreciate your kindness and your compassion. Time also is not racist. Time doesn't prefer male over female or female over male. Time doesn't care where you live, how tall you are, or how much you weigh. Time ticks away second by second, day by day. Now, I found out years ago that time can seem to mean more when you decide daily to impact people's lives in a positive way. Because I would suggest to you that if you think about your own life, the people that have impacted your life in your past, that is people who have maybe a teacher, maybe somebody in the neighborhood, maybe somebody in your own household back then that impacted your life, their memory is still living with you today. What they've taught you is still living with you today. So if it works for you, why can't you and I pay it forward and maximize the time that we have every single day to make an impact on the world that is extraordinary? You say, John, well, I don't make $1 billion. I don't make $1 million. I'm not going to make $1 million in my lifetime. It doesn't matter. It's what you do every day for people that's going to matter, that's going to make a difference in the lives of people that you may never even meet. It's essential that you understand the difference between the stick and the bundle. Let me share an article or a blog that I wrote in January of 2019. There have been a few times when I watch tennis matches, and it's normally one player against another player, unless they're playing doubles, of course. The results of the match depend on the skill of the player. There's no one else on the court, yet they can rely on even when they're struggling or having maybe a hard day. I remember watching golfers like Tiger Woods and Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer, and all of them depend on their individual focus and skill set to win. There are, however, other sports that rely on teammates to win games. They include like volleyball and baseball and soccer and football and basketball and rugby and many other sports. There is a consistent pattern, though, in those sports, I wrote. The teammates work together to win their games. One player, like in tennis or golf, cannot win the games. So there's a story. In Aesop's Fables, it says this, quote, "A certain father had a family of sons who were forever quarreling among themselves. No words they could say or would do anything to keep them from quarreling. So he cast about his mind for some very striking example that should make them see that discord would lead them to misfortune. One day when they were quarreling, they'd been much more violent than usual, and each of the sons were moping in a surly manner, and he asked one of them to bring him a bundle of sticks. Then he handed the bundle to each of his sons, and he told them to try to break it. But although each one tried his best, none was able to do so. So the father then untied the bundle and gave the sticks to his sons to break one by one, which they did very easily. 'My sons,' said the father, 'do you not see how certain it is that if you agree with each other and help each other, it's impossible for your enemies to injure you? But if you're divided among yourselves, you'll be no stronger than a single stick in that bundle. How often you have assumed, and I have assumed, that people like a tennis match or playing golf instead of playing basketball or baseball or volleyball. When you choose to join yourself to a team or a group of ethical people who are working very, very hard to make their lives better, you reap the benefits. You reap the benefits of their synergy and their skill sets. Think about that a minute. It goes both ways. So when you join yourself to a team, guess what? They leverage your strength. They leverage your talents. They leverage your history. They actually can leverage the lessons you've learned over the last several years. So the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So the power that can be derived really when you join yourself to other ethical people is important. One author said, a pack is greater than a wolf. Again, a pack is greater than a wolf. One twig lights a small fire, but 1,000 twigs lights an immense inferno. Individually, you're like a warrior, but together you can be part of an army. So if today you see yourself as maybe a lonely stick, you don't have to remain that way. You need to find a bundle of honest, hardworking, wise people and watch your life change in dramatic ways. Be conscious of the time. Be conscious of how much time you waste. And for some of you watching the show, you have to pull yourself to do certain things that you don't want to do. Get that stuff done early. Do the stuff that you don't want to do early. Make a list the night before of things that you should do the following day. Write it down. Don't think about it. Don't contemplate about it. Write it down. When you write it down, it literally pulls you forward to do the things that you need to do. Remember, time's ticking. The older you get, the faster it seems to go. Don't waste any more time. My name is John Carver. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back real soon.